On a cool evening, a small piece of chocolate can feel like a quiet light in the hand. It melts slowly. It smells warm deep and a little sweet. It can remind us of home, of gifts, of winter nights, or of a small act of kindness at the end of a long day. But why do people all over the world love chocolate so much? Why did this food begin as a drink, not a candy? Why does something so sweet carry such a long and sometimes dark story? And how did a bitter seed from tropical forests become a symbol of comfort, hope, and celebration? Tonight, we will learn English through that real story. We will walk slowly, in simple language, from old forests and ancient cups to the chocolate bars we know today. And as we go, we will see tradition, change, survival, and the choices people made. Long before chocolate was sold in bright paper, cacao trees grew in warm parts of the Americas. Their fruit held seeds. These seeds, when dried, roasted, and ground, could become a dark drink. It was not the sweet drink many people imagine today. It was often bitter, rich, and strong. Many historians note that ancient peoples in Mesoamerica valued cacao deeply. Mesoamerica means a large cultural area in parts of present-day Mexico and Central America. There, cacao was more than food. It could be part of daily life, part of trade, and part of ritual. This already gives us our first surprise. Chocolate did not begin as a dessert. It began closer to a serious drink. Sometimes it was mixed with water, spices, or other local flavors. Sometimes it was poured from one vessel to another to make foam on top. Why would a bitter drink become special? Because special things are not always sweet. Sometimes they are strong. Sometimes they are rare. Sometimes they connect people to memory, power, or belief. This is how cacao began to carry meaning. Some accounts suggest that cacao was linked to status in certain places and times. Status means social importance. In some communities, cacao could mark an important moment. It could appear in exchanges, gatherings, or ceremonial life. So from the start, chocolate stood between everyday life and something larger. It came from trees, pods, labor, and weather, but it was also close to symbol and story. Even today, a simple chocolate gift can mean more than food. It can mean I thought of you. Listen to this phrase. A bitter beginning. Say it with me. A bitter beginning. The story then moved through contact, conquest, and change. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, they did not find an empty land waiting for a new use. They entered a world that already had its own knowledge, traditions, and ways of preparing cacao. Then they carried cacao into new systems of power. This is one dark turn in chocolate's history. The movement of cacao into global trade did not happen in a peaceful, equal way. The story is complex, but many historians note that empire shaped the future of chocolate. Empire means a powerful state controlling other lands and peoples. Because of conquest, older traditions were often pushed aside, changed, or renamed. At the same time, cacao traveled, and when it traveled, it changed. In Europe, people slowly began to mix cacao with sugar, cinnamon, vanilla, and later milk. These changes softened bitterness. They made the drink more popular among people who preferred sweeter tastes. That is one bridge moment in the story. An old custom was adapted and given new meaning in a new place. But adaptation is not always innocent. How did chocolate become sweeter? Part of the answer is simple. New ingredients. But part of the answer is darker. Trade, colonial wealth, and labor systems that caused suffering. Sugar and cacao grew inside wider systems of control. Land was taken. People were forced to work. Communities were broken. Some sources describe chocolate's rise in Europe as a story of luxury. That is true in one sense. But luxury for some people often rested on hardship for others. And yet, the story is not only one of darkness. People kept making, sharing, and reshaping cacao in different ways. Old knowledge survived, new habits formed. Recipes changed from place to place. In this long movement, chocolate became both a memory of origin and a product of change. As demand grew, chocolate moved from a local treasure toward a global good. But at first, in Europe, it was still expensive. It was often for elites, for courts, for wealthy homes. Foods do not become normal overnight. First, they may belong to a few. Later, new tools, new trade routes, and new industries spread them further. Why does that matter? Because chocolate's history is also the history of access. Who can enjoy something? Who controls it? Who works for it? And who earns from it? Those questions began early, and they never fully disappeared. In homes where chocolate was prepared as a drink, people built habits around it. Cups, pots, sweeteners, and serving styles became part of tradition. A drink that began in one world now lived in another world too. It had crossed oceans. It had crossed languages. It had crossed ideas. Repeat after me. It crossed oceans. It crossed languages. It crossed ideas. This was the first great turning point. Chocolate left its ancient world and entered global empire. That change gave it reach. It also placed it inside systems of inequality. The taste grew sweeter, but the story grew heavier. And so the story moves on from rich tables toward fields, factories, and the people whose work made modern chocolate possible. The image stayed gentle. But under that gentle image, history kept moving. When people think of chocolate now, they often picture a bar, a box of sweets, or a warm drink on a rainy day. It feels close to home. But to understand how chocolate became ordinary for so many people, we need to walk into a harder place. The field and the factory. As demand increased, cacao had to be grown in larger amounts. That meant more land, more transport and labor. Chocolate did not become a common pleasure by magic. It became common because many hands touched it long before it reached the mouth. This is the second turning point in the story. Chocolate moved from a drink of status and ceremony toward a mass product. Mass product means something made in large amounts for many buyers. That change made chocolate easier to find. It also made hidden suffering easier to ignore. Many historians note that as global trade expanded, cacao production shifted more and more into colonial systems. In these systems, profit was often more important than people. Workers could be controlled, underpaid, or trapped in conditions with little freedom. The pattern is clear enough. The sweetness people enjoyed was often built on unequal power. Why does this matter so much? Because when a product becomes cheap and familiar, we can forget to ask how it got here. We see the wrapper. We taste the sugar. We do not see the long chain behind it, but the chain is there: tree, pod, harvest, drying, shipping, grinding, mixing, packing, selling. Say it with me: a long chain behind it. Some sources describe modern chocolate as a gift of industry. Industry means large-scale production, usually with machines. That is true in part. Machines changed everything. They could grind cacao more smoothly. They could mix ingredients in new ways. They could shape chocolate into bars and candies. They could help produce huge amounts for growing cities. Because of industry, chocolate slowly changed form. It was no longer only a drink. It became something people could hold, wrap, buy, share and carry. A drink belongs to a moment. A bar can travel. A bar can wait in a pocket on a shelf or in a gift bag. So chocolate became part of daily life in a new way. This was also a bridge moment. The old meaning of cacao was not fully lost. Chocolate still kept ideas of comfort, care, and special feeling. But these old meanings were now joined to new habits. Shops, brands, holidays, and factory systems. Tradition met modern life. How did people learn to think of chocolate as sweet comfort instead of bitter ritual? Partly through taste. Sugar and milk made chocolate softer and easier for many people to enjoy. Partly through image. Companies sold chocolate with pictures of love, family, childhood, and reward. They wrapped a difficult history in soft language. That does not mean every sweet memory is false. A child sharing chocolate with a friend is real. A warm drink on a cold night is real. Human kindness inside daily life is real. But the past behind those moments is real too. Both things can be true at once. Listen to this phrase: sweetness and shadow. Repeat after me: sweetness and shadow. As factories grew, chocolate became linked to modern time itself. People in busy cities wanted quick pleasures. Workers wanted affordable treats. Families wanted small luxuries. Chocolate fit that role well. It was not necessary for survival, but it offered a little hope, a little light, and a break from ordinary pressure. This may help explain why chocolate spread so widely. It gave pleasure in a small space. It could be shared. It could be saved. It could be given as a sign of gratitude or love. And because companies kept improving production, more people could buy it. That is why chocolate moved from the tables of the rich into the hands of the many. But again, another question waits for us. If chocolate became more open to ordinary people, did the workers who produced it also gain fair lives? In many cases, the answer was not simple and not comforting. Some regions that grew cacao remained poor even while the product became richer in world markets. Farmers often faced unstable prices. Workers often carried the risk while others took the larger profit. So the dark history did not end when chocolate became modern. In some ways, it only changed shape. Open violence could become hidden pressure. Formal control could become economic dependence. This is how history often works. It changes clothes, but it does not always change its heart. Many people never saw these realities. They only saw the final product, and this was helped by distance. Chocolate was sold far from where cacao was grown. When production and pleasure are far apart, memory becomes weak. The buyer forgets the grower. The package hides the field. The bright shop hides the hard sun. Why do we forget so easily? Perhaps because comfort is easy to love. Perhaps because a sweet story feels safer than a true one. Or perhaps because modern life teaches us to consume first and ask later. Still, the truth has a quiet way of returning. Over time, more writers, activists, and consumers began asking difficult questions about where chocolate came from. They asked about labor, fairness, child workers, land, and profit. They asked whether a sweet product could also be an ethical one. These questions did not destroy chocolate. They changed the conversation around it. A tradition does not survive only by staying the same. Sometimes it survives by listening, by facing pain, and by trying to become better. So by the modern age, chocolate carried many meanings at once. It was pleasure, it was business, it was memory, it was tradition. And that honest story leads us to today, where chocolate still shines in shop windows and festival boxes, yet still asks us one quiet question. What do we really taste when we take a bite? Today, chocolate lives in two worlds at once. In one world, it is a sweet comfort. It sits in kitchens, cafes, and holiday gifts. It brings people together. It can mark love, gratitude, rest, and celebration. In the other world, it still carries the weight of history. Land, labor, profit, and hard questions that do not melt away. How can one small food hold so much? How can something linked to kindness also be linked to pain? And how do old traditions survive when the modern market is so loud? These are human questions. That is why chocolate at Story still matters. When we look at chocolate now, we can see how the past continues inside the present. Many companies speak about fairness, better sourcing, and more care for farmers. Sourcing means where something comes from and how it is obtained. Some buyers now want to know who grew the cacao, how workers were treated, and whether the land was respected. Of course, the story is still complex. Some farmers gain support, while others still struggle. We should be careful and honest. The world of modern chocolate is not simply dark or bright. It is mixed, just like chocolate itself. Bitter and sweet together. That mixture is one reason the story stays alive. People do not only eat chocolate. They also fill it with meaning. Think of how often chocolate appears in moments of feeling. Someone says thank you with it. Someone shares it during a holiday. Someone offers it after a hard week, almost like a small promise that rest will come. Why has chocolate stayed so close to emotion? Perhaps because it changed with people as they changed with the world. It moved from ritual to trade, from trade to fashion, from fashion to industry, and from industry to everyday life. That is why tradition matters here. Tradition does not always stand still. Sometimes tradition survives by bending. Listen to this phrase. Tradition survives by bending. This is one of the quiet lessons inside chocolate's long journey. An ancient drink became a modern sweet, but not by one simple step. It changed because empires moved, because tastes changed, because machines worked, because markets grew, and because people kept choosing to keep chocolate near them. Some choices were beautiful, some were cruel, some were made in hope, some were made only for profit. If we tell the story honestly, we make room for all of this. We do not need to destroy the comfort people feel when they taste chocolate. We only need to widen that comfort with understanding. A piece of chocolate can still mean home. It can still mean kindness. But maybe it can also mean attention. Maybe it can remind us to ask where things come from and who stands behind the easy pleasures of modern life. That question reaches beyond chocolate, of course. It touches coffee, tea, sugar, cotton, and many other parts of daily life. Yet chocolate feels special because it is tied to warmth. It appears at festivals. It sits beside candles, letters, flowers, and family meals. It lives in memory. That makes its dark side harder to face, but also more important to understand. Say it with me. Warmth does not erase truth. In many homes, chocolate is part of a small personal ritual. Some people break a square after dinner. Some stir cocoa into hot milk. Some save a favorite bar for a day when they need hope. Hope can be small. It can live in taste, smell, memory, and routine. This is why foods matter. They do not only feed the body. They also feed feeling. And still, there is the tree. There is always the tree. Far from the shop and the shining box. Cacao begins again in heat, rain, soil, and patient work. Pods grow, seeds are removed. They are dried, moved, sold, and transformed. For all the language of brands and pleasure, chocolate still begins close to the earth. It can also reconnect us. When we remember the tree, we remember that food is never only a product. It is relationship. It joins weather, land, labor, knowledge, transport, money, and desire. This is how a single bite can contain a world. This is how history enters the mouth quietly. So where does that leave us now? Not with guilt alone. Not with easy praise either. It leaves us with balance. We can enjoy chocolate and still care about its story. We can receive comfort and still respect the people behind it. We can love tradition and still ask it to grow kinder. That is not a rejection of pleasure. It is a deeper form of gratitude. Many old customs disappear when the world changes. Chocolate did not disappear. It crossed oceans, languages, classes, and generations. It survived because people kept finding meaning in it. That survival is real. But survival for a tradition should not ask endless sacrifice from unseen workers. When we remember that, the story becomes clearer. Repeat after me. Kindness should travel too. Maybe that is the final bridge in chocolate's history. Once meaning traveled with cacao into new places. Now perhaps responsibility must travel too, not only taste, not only profit, responsibility, attention, gratitude, kindness. On a quiet night, chocolate can still feel like a small light in the hand. It can still bring comfort. It can still call up home, hope, and tradition. But now, perhaps it can do one more thing. It can invite us to look more carefully at the world, and to hold sweetness without forgetting truth. And maybe that is the gentlest way to remember this long story. Chocolate is not only a treat. It is a human journey, warm and dark at once, asking us to taste with pleasure, and to live with a little more kindness.